right. Well, welcome everybody. We are excited to host our newest financial series workshop with our partner, BMO Bank. And today, Daniel Rodriguez will be sharing with you guys about financial scams, other financial information, and all that. It is interactive, so feel free to ask questions, to engage. Daniel has a lot of great information. And this will be available on our website after the meeting as well for your reference. And we will follow up with any handouts or links or anything else that you're going to share with us, Daniel. So with that, I will turn it over to you and we can go ahead and get started.
Awesome. So welcome everyone. Again, my name is Daniel Rodriguez. I am the VP Regional Manager for Southern California Market. I'm a little underdressed because I'm working from home today. So yay. But anyway, we'll go ahead and get this presentation started. I'm excited to be partnering with the organization H.I.R.E and Megan, and we'll get it going here. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Or me to myself. Yes, we can see it.
All right, perfect. Okay, great. So, your identity is a valuable piece of information, and identity theft and identity fraud are fast-growing crimes. Some people think that identity theft is what happens when someone steals your credit or debit card. Actually, identity theft is much broader. It can involve someone impersonating you, using your personal information to open bank accounts, withdrawing money from your accounts, or even taking out loans in your name. By the end of the workshop, you'll be able to learn how to identify the signs of identity theft and fraud, examine different types of identity theft and fraud, identify strategies to protect yourself from identity theft and fraud, and learn how to protect your data using safe habits. Now, I always like to get started with a poll question. So let's test your knowledge of identity theft by answering this question here. So we have two questions. So question number one, there's a victim of identity theft every 2 seconds. True or false? If you want to put your answers in the chat as well. And then second question, you are more likely to have your identity stolen than have your car stolen or your home burglarized. All right, I see some trues, I see some falses. Great answers, but both of these facts actually are true. So thank you, Megan, for answering that and knowing the answers there. So identity theft is more common than most people think. We will learn more about identity theft in this workshop, along with some ways we can protect ourselves from this growing issue. So to better understand how we put ourselves at risk, let's examine the differences between the two types of crimes. So identity theft and identity fraud are terms used to refer to all types of crime in which someone wrongfully obtains and uses another person's personal data in some way. Identity fraud occurs when someone's personal information is used to access money, while identity theft is when personal information is accessed even if it isn't used for financial gain. So identity fraud and identity theft can happen to anyone, but some people may be more at risk than others. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, men and women are equal targets for identity theft. Adults over age 60 are at increased risk for identity theft as well. Households with an annual income of $75,000 or more are at a greater risk. Now, when someone steals your identity to impersonate you, open accounts, take out loans, and rack up debt, you can suffer long-lasting consequences. So these statements were collected during a survey conducted by ID Theft Center, which asked victims of identity thieves about the consequences of the theft on their daily lives. So as you can see there, right, some of the results that were collected was I lost a job opportunity because my identity was stolen. I couldn't qualify for a home loan. I had to rely on friends and family for assistance. I had to request government assistance. I had to borrow money with help with it for expenses. And I had to use my savings to pay for those expenses. Identity theft can cost you time, money, and reputation, right? As we see those in those examples that were collected. Once your identity is stolen, depending on how many accounts and services you have, you'll need to contact each bank, change each password, and notify all your credit card companies. This process may take you one day, or it can even last years, depending on how complex the identity theft was. So once an identity thief has your personal information, what can they do with it? Identity thieves will often use stolen information in several ways. So identity thieves may use your information to open new accounts with credit card companies, financial institutions, or even services such as cable, uh, cell phone bills, utilities, and public benefits. Identity thieves may also use stolen identity information to make transactions on your existing accounts. The thief may use the card or account itself to make purchases and rack up debt. In cases of identity theft, thieves may commit fraud by using your personal information to engage in criminal activity. They may, for example, present your identity as their own to police if they are caught doing something illegal, or they may use it to commit cyber crimes. If your medical identity is stolen, thieves may use it to get prescriptions, visit medical professionals, or receive expensive treatments. This type of theft has financial costs, but can also affect your medical history. I think that's one that's uncommon that we don't hear about much. So I want to make sure that we address that medical theft as well. So now that you know what identity thieves can do to steal with your identity, let's look at the way in order to they do this to accomplish this. So when identity thieves look to steal your identity, the first thing they need to find is your personal identifiable information, or as we call it, PII. Personally identifying information is anything that is used to distinguish or identify you. Identifying information can fall into four main categories, right? So biographical data, medical data, biometric data, and financial data. So many people don't realize how much of their information is actually out there. Identity thieves can impersonate you just by knowing your name and address, or they can gain access to your credit cards or bank accounts using more sophisticated tools. Depending on the types of information you share on social media, they can even guess your passwords or your answers to security questions. So my rule of thumb is, when you have these social media accounts like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, make those passwords hard. Don't make them, very simple, like my cat's name and then your birthday, things of that sort. Make sure that you're using strong passwords to make sure that you're protected also on your social media platforms. So on this slide here, there are many different kinds of personal information that thieves can use to steal your identity, right? So it's important information such as your social security number, driver's license, passport, passwords, credit reports, marriage or divorce records, tax documents, bank account information, and email accounts can all be misused. So now, how do we identify? So how do identities get a hold of your PII, right? Your personal information identity. So here are some common methods. As you can see, you may think identity theft happens mostly online, but there are many non-technological methods thieves use to steal your identity. The most common non-technological methods thieves use to access your data are theft, dumpster diving, shoulder surfing, and skimming. Many times, thieves use personal theft to steal your identity. They may steal your purse or wallet from you and then use the information in your wallet to steal your identity. Hopefully, you will not be a victim of theft, but in the case that you are, it's important to keep in mind some precautions in case your personal property is stolen. Here are a few examples of that. Don't carry your PIN numbers in your wallet or other passwords to access your accounts. You'd be surprised, working in the banking industry for almost 20 years now, how many people write down their PIN for their debit card or credit cards and keep it in their wallet. Big no-no. Please do not do that. Memorize your PIN if possible, because you're giving someone easy access to that information if you're a victim of theft and they have your personal wallet and things of that sort. Another thing, also, don't carry your social security card in your wallet. And only carry checks when you need them. This might be, I know we live in a new technological world, so maybe checks aren't even an option anymore, but just make sure that your Apple Wallet, make sure you know what's in your Apple Wallet, what credit cards are on there in case your phone gets stolen as well. Because once they have your phone, they're going to be able to access all that data. Your credit card numbers, your CVV number on the back of the card, all that information is part of that Apple Wallet. Now, you would think that most identity theft comes from personal theft, but identity theft can also occur from dumpster diving. Dumpster diving is when someone goes through your trash or recycling looking for discarded bills, pre-approved credit offers, or documents that contain personally identifiable information about you. To discourage dumpster diving, make sure you completely shred any sensitive documents before tossing them. Choose a cross-cut shredder over a stripe or a strip cut one, because that makes it more difficult for thieves to piece documents back together. And then shoulder surfing is when thieves peek over your shoulder to record your entering sensitive information, such as credit card numbers, passwords, or pins. I know when I go to the store, I always look behind me just to make sure that no one's over my shoulder trying to see my pin. So it's kind of my best practice. And then, as I mentioned, right, always be aware of your surroundings and cover your phone screen or ATM keypad when entering such information. Identity theft also occurs via mail. When thieves steal personal mail out of your mailbox. Another way thieves steal your mail is by rerouting it. Once they know your address, changing it is easy as logging onto the US Postal Service website and filling out an online form. Once the mail is redirected to an address by the thief, he or she can sort through your mail looking for valuable information. Identity thieves can also steal your information by using more text bills, going through your mail and putting your bills, even discarded bills. They can access your name, address, and even tax or medical information. It is important to either keep or properly destroy mail that contains your personal identifiable information by shredding these documents. A good practice that I always tell our bank clients is, hey, if you don't feel comfortable throwing away, your discarded bills in your trash, feel free to bring them to the bank. We have shredders at our financial institutions that you can come in and, as a courtesy, we'll help you shred those bills or discarded notices safely. Now, identities can also use a method known as skimming to collect your information. Skimming occurs when a thief installs an illegal device known as a skimmer into gas pumps. I don't know if you guys have heard that recently. There's been a lot of skimming going on right now at different gas stations, even at 7-Elevens, where a representative of 7-Eleven was actually involved by allowing these folks to leave the skimmers on their ATM, on their pin pads. So what this does, if the skimmer is placed on a gas pump or at a store, it's capturing all the data. So when you swipe your card into the skimmer, the device collects your information. To avoid having your card skimmed, look at the device you're about to use to ensure there's not a skimmer on it. And this examples can be found online. I don't have any examples here, but if you just type in skimmer, you'll see what the different types of skimmers are being used right now. Look at the device and then obviously cover the pin pad when inputting security codes at the ATMs. Try to maintain possession of your card and keep it in sight at all times. One of the things that's also been beneficial in the banking industry now is that tap option, right? Or pay wave. That's the most recommended option to use when purchasing anything at any type of store. Just if it's available, please either tap your phone or tap your debit or credit card. Now, identity thieves can use many methods and techniques to steal your identity, but in general, common scams include phishing scams, telephone scams, and other fraud scams. More sophisticated identity thieves may use technology methods to access your data. The most common method is known as phishing. Some of you may have received a phishing email. For example, an email that appears to be from your bank but isn't. Phishing is when a scammer uses fraudulent emails or text or copycat websites to get you to share valuable personal information. The scammer may include requests from people pretending to be a friend or a family member who needs financial help. I've been a victim of this, actually. My wife received an email. She thought it was from AT&T, and she didn't, really look at the email itself and clicked on it. So it wasn't a fun time to make sure that everything was safe and secured. Now, phishing scams include, again, like I mentioned, right, include emails where thieves will often send out fake emails impersonating a company that you do business with, such as your bank or credit card company. Or they will reach out through email to pretend that they are protecting you from a virus or a malware allegedly detected on your computer. Now, telephone scams occur in a variety of ways, whether it's a telemarketer calling you with a special limited time offer to people impersonating government officials, banks, or credit card companies. And then finally, elder fraud scams are also common. These scams can range from Medicare, health insurance scams, funeral and cemetery scams, power of attorney scams, and more. Now that we know how thieves gain data, let's look at some inner workings of, oh, did I skip a slide? Sorry about that. Now that we have some information here, let's look at some inner workings of some common scams. Remember, these are just some of the more common scams that are out there. There is going to be other scams that we're not going to go through today. So let's begin with the phishing email. It's a scam where a thief pretends to be a legitimate company and tries to collect your personal information. Whenever you receive an email or text message asking you to click on a link to reset your password, update your credit card information, or enter your social security number, there are a few steps you can take to ensure email is authentic. So in the case of emails, as you can see, if I can hover over it, check the email address it was sent from. Does it match the email address used by the company or bank it's supposedly from? Look for subtle differences in spelling, right? That's the biggest identifier if it's a scam. If you notice here, it says John Smith at Nathaniel Bank, right? He's missing, there's an I missing here. So this is very common when phishing emails are received. You'll see that if you pay attention to it, you'll catch it. Most of the time, we just kind of go through it, right? Go through the motions when looking at our emails because we automatically assume it's from our bank because we've seen emails before. But if it looks odd, I'd pay attention to this email to make sure it's actually coming from your bank. And I'll tell you right now, 110%, the banks will not make mistakes when sending an email out to you with this typo. Second piece, right, is a generic greeting. They're not addressing you by name. If this is your bank, why would they be addressing you as customer? They should know who you are. Also, the other thing, right, is check language using the greeting. How is the message addressed? Some other common themes that we've seen on phishing emails is dear member or valued client. Again, if this is your bank, they should know who you are. Because I know when I receive emails from my banks, my name's on there. Like, hey, Daniel Rodriguez, we're reaching out to you because of XYZ. And then finally, check the language of the rest of the message. Is the language what you would expect from the sender? Or is it overly formal, threatening, or too general? Is the message itself written poorly? Are there spelling errors and grammatical mistakes? Is the person asking for something unusual that your bank would ask, right? For your bank would not ask you for your social security number or bank account number. We already have that information. There's no need for us to be requesting that information. So that's another red flag about a phishing scam. And then also finally, just check before you click to open any attachment or before you click on any links. Ask yourself if you were expecting any attachments from the sender and examine the link name and the file extension carefully as it could contain malware. If there's any doubt about the legitimacy, do not open any attachments or click on any links. And if again, for any additional doubts, contact your financial institution directly, right? And ask them if they sent out an email to you regarding whatever the topic may be. Taking this time can prevent a lot of future pain for you and others, right? As I mentioned, I had that similar situation with my wife, and it was quite a headache. The other thing you can do too here is if you see links, don't click on it, but you can actually because this is a presentation, so it won't work. You can hover over it, and if it doesn't route you to it, it'll give you the hyperlink. It'll say www.nationalbank.com if it's an actual correct link. And if you hover over this and you see something completely different, like Google Web Services /hub, then you know it's a fake link as well. So now we're going to do an activity to find out more about phishing scams. All right, so read the email on the screen, or I'll read it for you guys, and then let me know after you've examined if you see anything odd about this email. So this is from Yahoo Mail, subject, change your password. Dear customer, we noticed that you signed in from a different computer. Please log in using this link. Verify your password, www.yahoo.com. If you not verify this information within 24H, your account will be permanently deleted. Best, Yahoo team. So if you guys want to write it in the chat or want to get off mute and tell me what are some of the odd things on this email. Right, exactly. Yeah, it's an extra oh Yahoo. Exactly. So and then the other thing is the email address. A legitimate email would come from the or an organization, not outside an email client like Yahoo or Gmail. The other thing, right, like you guys mentioned, the language. Dear customer, very generic. A legitimate email from an email service provider would likely address the user by his or her username. And as mentioned, also typos, right? Thank you, TJL. There's a lot of typos on here, bro. So grammatical errors such as we noticed that you sign in was one of them, and you account will be. The link address also, as you mentioned, has an extra O. And also the link address. The link address is also off, right? That extra O, we see that extra O there again. And then finally, the time sensitivity. Email providers often set up time emails for password resets. When they provide you with a dummy password, however, they will not permanently delete your account. So keep that in mind as well. So now many scammers also operate via telephone. So next we'll learn about these types of scams. Now I'm going to read over this phone conversation on a screen and then tell me what you think are possible red flags. So hello, Mr. James. You are the lucky winner of the $1 million lottery. Congratulations. All you need to do is verify your identity with your social security number and provide us with details of your bank account where we can wire you the money. I'm not supposed to tell you this, but if you act now, we would be able to waive all the taxes on the amounts. I have all the paperwork with me right here. Let's start with your social security number. So what do you guys think? What's some red flags that are already in this phone scam from a telemarketer? And you can put it in the chat as well. Oh, yeah, thank you, Lynn. Exactly right. I'm not supposed to tell you this. Yep, asking for personal identifiable information. Exactly. If they're reaching out to you and you're a recipient of $1 million winning, why would they need your social security number and your bank account number? The other red flag on here is also right. If you act now, we'll waive taxes. Come on, we all know that there's only two things in life guaranteed, right? This is my slogan: death and taxes. Those are the only two things guaranteed in life: death and paying taxes. So, yeah. So thank you guys for that, and also listen for urgency, right? Do they pressure you to make a decision now, or offer to dramatically drop fees, as this phone call mentions? So these comments could be signs of a scam. Now, here's another phone conversation. So someone who reaches out to you and says, "Hi, I'm friends with your nephew. He's in trouble with the law and needs your help. He got arrested last night and is now in jail. He needs bail money before he can be released. It's a long story, but he asked me to call you instead of his parents because he's embarrassed about what happened to him. He needs you to wire money in the next hour from Western Union. It's important that you send this money right away." So can anybody guess what red flags are on this one? Exactly. The nephew's name was not mentioned. The sender is a right friend. Exactly. So, as you know, the nephew's name was not mentioned. The involvement of family member, an immediate need for money, and a request for secrecy, suspicious, right? If this is your family member, they're calling your family member. Why wouldn't they want to tell you who they are and try to remain secret? And then finally, caller not providing additional information about the location and the situation. So I don't know if you guys have heard, but there's been some kind of fraud using Chat GPT as well, where they're calling. There was a case on TikTok actually of a girl who used ChatGPT to change her voice and try to request money from her mom to go to Coachella. So this similar scam was used within her own family. So just be conscious of those things out there, right? There's all these other technology now that are making these types of things easier. Now, most phone scammers are strangers who don't know the victims. However, some phone scammers will look up information about the victim's family or pretend to be a third party to appear more credible in their scams. But some scam artists may even be acquaintances, friends, or even family, right? As I mentioned. Let's look into that a little bit further. So we've seen, right, the phone scans, they are often used on senior citizens. Now we'll see another way scammers target senior citizens. People should be aware that their elderly friends and relatives may become victims of this next scam. Many seniors may own assets such as a house, a car, retirement funds, 401ks, benefits that can make attractive targets for identity thieves. An identity thief may be a stranger who tries to befriend a senior, a professional who may have access to the senior's home, or even a friend or a family member. One of the more common ways in which thieves target seniors is by abusing, the power of attorney. If you are a senior or a caretaker of a senior, be aware of anyone asking for power of attorney. Seniors often may need increasing help with everyday finances, including household and medical finances. They may grant a family member, a close friend, power of attorney. An individual who is granted a power of attorney is legally bound to act in the senior's best interest, but sometimes that individual does not. So let's look at this scenario here, and then tell me what are some of the red flags that you guys spot. So at 87, Mr. Ali lives alone in his house. His wife passed away 10 years ago, and his children live in a different state. Recently, he met a young man called Samir, who said he was Mr. Ali's long-lost nephew. Samir quickly moved into Mr. Ali's house and helped with his daily chores. Mr. Ali was so grateful that he agreed to give Samir power of attorney so that he can manage his household finances. So what are some of the red flags on here? And give it about 30 seconds here. And if not, we'll talk through them. Yep, quickly moving to the house, exactly. And then also, right, yeah, Samir kind of forcefully asked for power of attorney. Yes, perfect. Yeah, long lost nephew, right? So to start, right, Mr. Lee had never met Samir. And all of a sudden, he's a long lost nephew, but Mr. Ali never requested proof to confirm that relationship, right? If a long lost relative comes along, I want to confirm who they are and on what side of the family they're coming from. That's very important. And then the fact that, as mentioned, right, he moved into Mr. Ali's house so quickly is questionable behavior. Now, with him giving Samir power of attorney, he's essentially giving away his financial rights. Now, we'll go through another scenario here too as well. I'll go ahead and read it. And you can just kind of, also in the chat, we'll give a 30 seconds to a minute to see what any red flags you catch on this one as well. So Mr. Garcia was 78 years old when he gave her niece, Angela, power of attorney. Recently, Mrs. Garcia has become quiet and sad. She does not leave the house for daily walks anymore. Her neighbors noticed that Angela bought an expensive new car and claimed it was from her aunt. Angela is also making plans to remodel and expand the guest bedroom and plans to move in. Since it is her aunt's house, she intends to use her aunt's funds to pay for the expenses. When Angela is not around, Mrs. Garcia complains that some of her things are going missing. So, what are some of the red flags in this scenario? Awesome. All great answers there. Exactly. Right. Those are some of the red flags there. So, Mrs. Garcia's, as mentioned in your chat responses, exactly. Mrs. Garcia's changing behavior and attitude, right? She's now quiet, sad. Angela purchasing an expensive car, complaining about, missing valuables as well. And then finally, right, Angela plans to spend her aunt's money on expensive house remodels. Now, knowing how to spot a scam is an important skill. You can find out more details about scams and red flags at www.identitytheft.gov. Let me see if I can put that in the chat. Now let's discuss a few special kinds of identity theft that we're also seeing in the market. So identity thieves target victims based on their available financial data and the ability to exploit it. In this section, we'll look at some special types of identity theft you should be aware of. First one's child identity theft. So children are a growing target population among identity thieves. Children's personal information, such as their names, home addresses, social security numbers, may be used by thieves to open accounts, apply for and use credit cards, and even apply for social benefits. Now, you may ask yourself, how do thieves get this information, right? Thieves access identification about children the same way they do for adults, via discarded documents, online scams, phone scams, and even stolen property. Additionally, unfortunate scenarios exist, right? Let's be realistic. It can happen, such as a family or friend who takes advantage of the child's identity and puts the child's information at risk. As with yourself, be careful about the entities that you share your children's information with. So some of those common entities that we share, our children's information with can be schools. So from kindergarten all the way through college, right? They collect and store personal information about your child, and they are legally obligated to protect it. Still, though, parents should take the initiative. Find out the school's policy on disclosing and discarding private information, and also, parents and older students have rights under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So ask about the directory information and know you can opt out of the information being disclosed. And also more detailed information, you can find it on that website that I put in the chat. So identitytheft.gov will kind of guide you through that process. The second special case, medical identity theft. Medical identity theft may occur when a thief uses your medical identity to access healthcare, get prescription medication, or claim insurance benefits. Thieves often retrieve this information from dumpster diving, from discarded bills, and medical records. Thieves may also access it during data breaches or hacks of medical offices or hospitals. So I believe there was one recently, or not too long ago, where Kaiser actually was hacked. So some of that information, they make sure to disclose to all of their clients, hey, make sure you put some kind of fraud alert or some kind of credit monitoring services to make sure that your data was not leaked and that you're protected, and that in case you were one of those folks that they acquired the information from. A best practice is if you receive a medical bill for treatment that you didn't receive, insurance claims or conditions you don't have, or debt collections for unpaid medical bills you're responsible for, it may be a sign that a thief is using your medical identity. This theft can be especially harmful because your medical history may become entwined with that of the thieves, increasing the risk of misdiagnosis or denial of services or insurance. So just keep that in mind. If you are, unfortunate to be attacked by medical identity theft, it will affect your insurance. So make sure that you get on top of this as well to clear it up as soon as possible, so you're not affected when you need actual medical services. And then finally, tax identity theft. Once thieves have access to your social security number and name, they may file for a tax return using your identity. If you receive a notice from the IRS or your tax preparer, bookkeeper, CPA, H.I.R.E block, things of that sort, about multiple tax return filings, or if there's a suspicious detail in your IRS records about employment or earnings, a thief may be committing tax fraud. Make sure to reach out to the IRS as soon as possible. Now, just to kind of touch more on some more common red flags of identity theft. So here are some of those here. So pay attention to the following red flags, which may be signs of identity theft. While you may not be able to prevent all cases of identity theft, because I want to be realistic as well, right? It's tough to make sure that you're covered and prevent in all ways, because as I mentioned, right, these guys are getting creative, especially with technology like ChatGPT and all these other software that's available now. It's going to be hard to prevent all this, but let's review some of the following red flags here. Kind of take a moment to think about them and how you can protect yourself against identity theft. So some of the ways, right, that it's a red flag: denials. You're receiving letters of, hey, you've been denied for a credit card application, or you're being denied services like utilities, right, like light bill, water bills, or you're being denied being able to rent in a particular area, or they're asking you for a down payment, or say, or it's a security deposit in addition to an additional payment, I think a down payment to make sure um, that you don't walk away from your rents, because that's what's happening to a lot of fraudsters are doing this. You're using your information, they're renting out apartments, living there for free, not paying rent for months on end, and then just disappearing, and then you're left with that burden. So keep that in mind. If you see something of that sort, a letter or collection from a property management company, something's going on with your identity there. Other red flags: unusual activity, right? Unusual charges on your credit cards, in your bank account, unusual changes in your credit report or credit scores. You see your credit scores go from 700 to 600, or some of the other red flags, right? IRS reports. So IRS reports indicating that more than one person has filed a tax return using your social security, as I mentioned earlier. And then the IRS reporting indicated wages are different, and they're coming from unknown sources. Other red flags: incorrect medical history information, incorrect medical bills. And then finally, right, someone said that they're going to send you a letter and you never received it, or your water bill never comes in, and so now you're getting phone calls saying, "Hey, you haven't paid your water bill for this month. You're behind." And you say, "Hey, I never received the bill." So that's a red flag, right? That someone's already in your mailbox pulling that information. So simply said, right, knowing the signs of identity theft and how it affects you or your loved one can set the foundation for taking steps toward protection and prevention. Now we'll go through some do's and don'ts here. So this is how different ways you can protect yourself. So you can protect your personal information for free by following some basic safety rules. Here are some do's and don'ts for protecting against identity theft. This is something I always recommend. Monitor your credit reports and scores. By law, you can access your credit report for free at annualcreditreport.com. I'll put that in the chat here as well. Give me 1 second. During the pandemic, you were actually able to review your credit report, I believe, once a quarter, just to see what was happening, what changes um, were occurring, because you either an essential worker, or your place of business closed, so it affected your job security and kind of affecting your credit. So the government decided to allow you review your annual credit report at least once a quarter. I believe now it's back to biannually. So you can check your annual credit report for free. It's through this government website, and they'll send you your full report just so you can monitor if there's any changes or things of that sort. And close that. And practice online safety, right? Don't go to websites that seem funny, that you're not familiar with. I know, especially now in today's environment, there's a lot of different domain names. We're still used to seeing .com, .org, .gov, but now you run into some of these little funny ones that just say .co. Like, hey, is that a trusted domain that I should be looking into, or should I kind of just close that web page out and just find a reliable source on Google? Also, secure important documents, right? It's important to keep this information, like your social security number, date of birth, passports, when not in use, have them secure. I know for me, I have a small safe in my home where those documents are secured. And another do, right? Be aware of your surroundings. As I mentioned, we do have those shoulder surfers, right? Make sure you're aware of your surroundings when you're inputting your PIN at a retail store, and then also at the ATMs. And then these have become really common lately, actually. So these don't use public Wi-Fi to access sensitive information. I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but it's also a good rule of thumb. If you're at the airport and you know how they have those charging ports where you put in your USB to charge your phone, they're actually recommending that you don't use those, because what's happening now, a lot of these folks that are involved in these scams, they can pull data from those ports. So if you're going to charge your phone at an airport or a public location, make sure you're using your cube, right? Not just the USB plug-in, but your actual the cube that connects the USB port and then to your phone. And as I mentioned before, right, don't click on unknown links and don't open suspicious attachments. Now, here are some of the ways to protect yourself against identity theft. As I mentioned earlier, right, credit monitoring services. We don't have them available to us. I always like to, mention always annualcreditreport.com because it's a free service that's provided by the government entity that's behind monitoring that site. But also, Credit Karma is a good one. You have it right on your phone. There's also, depending on where you bank, like for example, I bank with Chase as well, and they have a credit, journey application within the app. So make sure that you're utilizing those free services, right, to monitor changes in your credit. There's also identity monitoring services involved with that. I know other banks also provide that service free of charge. So kind of just take advantage of those free services, and also credit or security freezes. If you've already been targeted for theft with this variety of these scams, make sure you put a lock on your credit. You can actually reach out to the three credit bureaus, right? Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and say, hey, I was a victim of identity theft. I want to put a freeze on my credit pools. So anytime that somebody pulls, it'll automatically won't allow them to pull credit or anything of that sort. But when you decide to, you're buying a car or you're applying for a credit card or you're, getting a new cell phone service, you're going to have to call the provider that company is using and ask them to unfreeze it for you for, 5-10 minutes. So that way, when you're working with those companies, they have access to pull your file. And after that, it'll be locked again, just to make sure that you're protected. And then finally, right, fraud alerts. We all have, we're in a digital world now, so fraud alerts can pop up. Make sure you have your notifications on for your bank accounts, for your credit cards, so you get real-time alerts if something's happening to your bank account or somebody's trying to use your credit for malicious things. And so now these are some of the laws that are in place to protect you. So the Identity Theft and Assumption Deterrence Act of 1998. So this is an act states that identity theft is a federal crime that can carry a punishment for up to 15 years of imprisonment. So keep that in mind. There is laws that protect us from identity theft, and it is punishable crime. And then secondly, the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act of 1999. So this act requires financial institutions like myself, like BMO, to protect your data and notify you about how they use your information. So I think this is a good one to know about, because some of the times when you go to your bank, they ask you certain questions when you're opening an account, and you can automatically opt out, say, hey, I don't want you to share my personal information with service providers that the bank works with. So you're limiting the exposure of who's receiving your personal data. Now, these are some. I hope this doesn't happen, but a lot of times we can't control. There is going to be victims of fraud. So here are some of the steps to take after you're affected. So the first step, collect all the information and review your accounts. Then review the account where the theft occurred and note any changes. Step 2 is to report to fraud departments and federal agencies. Report the theft to the fraud department at the organization or company where it occurred. Close all accounts and change all passwords, PINs, access data to prevent the breach from reoccurring. And then obviously, report the theft to the 3 nationwide credit reporting agencies, as I mentioned, right? TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. Make sure that they're aware to place a fraud alert that someone stole your identity. And then also, this is pretty important here. Create an identity theft report by reporting the theft to the Federal Trade Commission. So the Federal Trade Commission will actually have a report for you. So in case, you want to apply for a credit card and it is you and you're declined because you're high utilization or there's multiple credit cards out, this identity theft report will help you actually overcome those negative decisions or those decline reasons, because now you have this report filed with the Federal Trade Commission, that's going to be supporting you when you decide to apply for credit and things of that sort. And then finally, create a report with the local police, right? You want to make sure that you file a police report, because then again, all these things are going to help you after the fact that your identity has been stolen, and it's going to protect you going forward. And step 3, repair the damage. Review the new accounts created by the thief and close them down. Review and correct statements and charges on your bills, credit reports, and other financial documents. Now, I know that was a lot, and today, we learned a lot, right? So I'll leave you with this. Identity theft can take various forms, as we saw, and target many types of people. However, by being aware and mindful, and by sharing your information selectively, you can reduce the window of opportunity for thieves to access your information. As more and more personal information becomes available online, and as financial services move online, it is important to develop the skills to understand and monitor your own finances. It is also important to build healthy habits, such as changing passwords regularly. I change my password every 90 days. I know it's, we like to remember our passwords and things of that sort, but all of our phones now save your passwords, right? So that's a good practice for me. I change my passwords every 90 days. Requesting and reviewing your credit reports yearly or semi-annually is important as well. And ensuring that errors on your credit reports are corrected quickly. And then finally, right, the more difficult it is for identity thieves to access or use your data, the more protected you and others will be. And with that, we'll wrap it. For any questions, comments, concerns. I hope that was
Love it. Yeah, thank you, Daniel, so much. Lots of great information. Super excited. So thank you so much for coming and presenting to everybody. And thank you everyone for attending. Just in summary, we will share out the recording of this as well as the slides and the information and stuff to everyone who attended. So keep an eye out for that. But any other questions for Daniel while you guys have him? Nope. I think we're good. Well, awesome. And just so everyone knows, this one will be our last workshop for the year, because we were kind of wrapping up for the holidays, but we will resume again back in January. And so we'll be sending out more information on the next workshops and more information coming up for that too. So stay in touch and stay tuned, and we will let you know of anything else coming up. So thank you again for attending, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.